And good evening, everyone. This is the Rooftop Sports. We got my friend in crime over there. We got the Trident podcast. So it is less than 24 hours away from Mariners opening day. And I thought this would have been a great idea to talk about what happened throughout spring ball. What are things to be excited about the Mariners? Are there concerns about the Mariners? Final predictions and things to react on the John Stanton interview, where I'll give an applause for at least showing up. So, Trident, how are you doing?
Good. Excited for opening day. It's crazy. We had our journey last year kind of together, doing all the live streams and everything. And now it's back. Baseball is back. Starting tomorrow, we have baseball pretty much every day for the next 6 months. Minus, 15, 17 days off. It's go time starting tomorrow.
It's go time. And like JP Crawford, like he said, LFG, while screaming on the microphone to Jen Mueller after that game-winning hit that we also witnessed. And, I think I'm just going to show that really quick and just to reminisce what happened. And I just got to find it. Here it is. I'm not even looking at my scoreboard. That's what I'm not doing. And here's the 1-1 pitch. And here is a fly ball to left field. And it is gone by! And the Mariners are going to win! They have won the game! JP! Oh my God, what a memory that was. That is easily my number one best moment throughout that entire season, was calling that home run, because I remember home run, walk-off. Throughout that entire game, I was like doom and gloom, but yep, we're doomed. We're not going to win. And then JP Crawford just did that. And
that's when I broke my monitor.
Yes, you did broke your monitor. And
they had the bases loaded, nobody out. And JP was with 2 outs, and it was like, they're doing it again. Another bases loaded, nobody out
doing
situation.
It again. And at that time, that's where you had to rely on me for my play-by-play. And good thing it was so realistic that it was easy to follow. So, but I thought we'd get some things out of the way. So, just recent breaking news. Jay Trident told me just 5 minutes ago, and I don't put anything on him. Unfortunately, he will not be joining me for the show tomorrow, only because he's got the moving going on. He's got the don't quit your day job situation, which is heavily understandable. But despite that, the show must go on, and it will still be a lot of fun. It would have been fun, Jay, trying to be there just so we could, because we had a lot of content to go through. So Trident he'll take care of his stuff, and definitely, hopefully, by next week, we'll get more shows in. And the other thing I want to go over before we talk about Mariners is your number one fan, or one of your fans. He's also on my fantasy baseball league. I support him in his Special Olympics basketball team. I actually asked him all the questions about which YouTuber he likes, either between myself or the other one. So this is how it started. So I asked if he liked Jay Trident podcast or Rooftop Sports. He said Jay Trident podcast. And I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Like, his style must have something that I don't. And he's known me as a Mariners fan for years, and he doesn't and we also think differently. Then it gets better. We went to Couch GM or Rooftop Sports. He said Couch GM, and I go, okay, yeah, I understand. He has all those connections, and he has really good editing skills that I don't exactly have, that I'm working on.
Yours are pretty good.
It's really good. Like, you cannot take that away from him. Then we'll go to Marine Layer podcast and Rooftop Sports, and he said Marine Layer podcast, and I go, okay, their podcasting is good. They're able to get the views. They have the credentials. They're both very passionate, and they work together. They seem to have good chemistry. And I was like, okay. I'll let it slide. Okay, fine. And then my most favorite one, Mariners Mojo or Rooftop Sports. Would you like to take a guess what he said?
I'm going to say he went with you on this one. You've got to get one. You got to get one of them.
No, he went with the Mojo, and I was
And
like,
I love the
no, I
Mojo.
can't even get one from him. But hey, Mojo's been
You
doing
or
it for
John
years.
Stanton? Rooftop or John Stanton?
I think he would have said John Stanton. But I mean, Mojo, it's like, okay, fine. I mean, it's painful to say, but they went into the market of YouTube Mariner fans before we all did. So they took advantage, and their editing's really good. They're very consistent. They have a lot of connections. And the way I see it, he is a true friend for saying all of that, because it's a quiet way of him of saying, I have room for improvement. Because if he, a not true friend would have been, oh yeah, your channel's better than all of them, but it doesn't really explain why. And if he's just saying that because we're friends, then it's like he's not being a true friend, because he's not willing. He's trying to, I guess he's trying to quietly motivate me. But then there's also that whole, well, he's got to support you. I mean, he does watch me, so I'll give him that.
There you go.
So,
You know
so
what?
that
As
is,
long
yeah.
as you're watching my videos, like them or hate them, the views help. So
Any views help. Well, we're going to get going, because before we get going, hello, Mr. Yuki Matsui. He's named based on the Padres pitcher. We met at the Korea Seoul Series, but we're
sweet.
going to go over Mariners spring ball and what a spring training it was. I think this is probably one of the better spring trainings that I have ever seen for many different reasons. Well, first off, they came off of that 1-9 record where everyone was like doom and gloom. I was actually one of the few where I was like, most of those games, they were just experimenting their pitchers, and because not almost like no one was available when it was like the first couple weeks of spring training, and they were just experimenting everyone. So I wasn't that worried. Now, if they finished like they did in 2001 with the you can't flip the switch, then yes, I would have absolutely been concerned. But luckily, it's exactly what I expected, where as soon as the veterans and the experienced players came in, then they started winning those games to build a positive momentum. Other reasons why it was fun, we got to see a lot of the prospects. We got to see Johnny Farmelo, Lazaro Montez, my most favorite prospect out of all of them. Harry Ford throwing out a guy. Colt Emerson got some action. Cole Young really showed how much potential he has, and that maybe if things go the right way, maybe we'll see him in sometime in midsummer to maybe fall, depending how the team goes. We got to see Ryan Bliss out of the Paul Sewald trade that you did like, Trident, and you do say it many times. We got to see Dominic Canzone play very well. Ty France is looking good with his swing. The Mitches are looking pretty good. Hopefully those can all translate into Major League Baseball season, because if that offense plays exactly how they did in the regular season, that's easily a top 5 offense. No question. So Trident, any takes and reflections out of that Mariners spring ball?
Yeah, kind of just echoing what you said. I honestly didn't realize till yesterday that they had turned it around to be 15, 14, and 1. And like you, I didn't pay too much attention to the record. It's just, it's spring training, and you've got guys like they blew the save in the first spring training game. I don't even remember who that guy was that was pitching in the ninth
Me
inning.
neither.
Nobody that, yeah. So, stuff like that is just, you kind of go, whatever. But the bats have been amazing, and it's spring. We shouldn't go overboard with the positive or the negative. I get it, but really encouraging to see the bats heating up. But yeah, just, kind of echoing what you said. I think seeing those prospects come up was really fun. I think there is a bright future, a system that just a couple of years ago looked a little depleted because all the prospects like Julio, Kellenic, Kirby, Gilbert all kind of graduated. And then you had the Luis Castillo trade, and the farm system, what was one of the more lower ranked ones, if I'm not mistaken, which is fine. That happens, right? You have a good farm system, prospects graduate, farm system's going to drop off. That's just how it is. But they've replenished it really well. I don't need to re-say the names you said. You are the one that introduced me to Lazardo Montez. So I do appreciate that from you. So he will always have a special place for me because I'm like, that's Rooftop's guy. And it's me too. I love him. But no, I think the future is bright. I think that the current organization is in good hands as well.
Yeah, I mean, and to go deeper into Lazaro Montez, why do I like him is because he has the comparisons of Yordan Alvarez, and Yordan Alvarez is the one that started to blow up my channel through him hitting that home run against Robbie Ray, and I made a rant video about it, and then I made the butterfly effect video of how the Mariners got Yordan to the Houston Astros, and that blew up my channel. So I guess Alvarez connections was a thing. I mean, he's probably quietly one of my favorite baseball players, and many Mariner fans probably won't like that very much, but it's baseball. You should be allowed to like anyone, honestly.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it is like, do I hate facing Yordan Alvarez? Absolutely. Like, I'm nervous. But, even like the Astros in general, like I don't like the Astros, but I respect, good baseball teams. Like they're obviously good. And, take away the cheating. So I'm not going to get into all that. But like, even the 49ers, like I hate the 49ers, but are the 49ers good? Yeah, they're a really good football team. You know what I mean? So it's finding that, kind of middle ground there a little bit. So I can, like not like a player because of what they do to the Mariners. One, I don't know these guys personally, so I don't hate anybody I don't know. And second of all, you can respect good baseball. I hated Vlad Guerrero and the Angels killed the Mariners, but I certainly had some whoa off some of the moonshots he would hit off Moyer and stuff like that. You respect the game.
Yeah, you got to respect the game. It's not so much about hate the player, but also hate the game. It's just the game as it is. But that's all about the Lazar Montez spring ball. I mean, I think other things I can think of is we got to see who might contribute for the bullpen, which it's still very unclear. It seems like there's a dark cloud behind it. Like we just don't know because we thought Jackson Kowar was going to get that opportunity, but then the Tommy John happened, and now basically everyone from that Jared Kelenic trade is now hurt all of a sudden. Cole Phillips also still recovering, so it's quite the Tommy John trade. And then Carlos Vargas off the Eugenio Suarez trade. He has really good stuff, but inconsistency is the issue. And I'm hoping the one pitcher I am really hoping to get the opportunity is Tyson Miller, the man that Couch GM talked about, because he has like the comparisons of Paul Sewald. So I hope he's one of those guys by tomorrow that gets that roster spot because he did have some good stuff. But aside from that, you don't really know exactly who's going to make the bullpen spot, especially maybe those last two spots, because we got Matt Brash that is on the IL. You've got Gregory Santos. We're still not clear of when he's going to come back. So April is going to be a very testy month where you're going to be playing without a dominant bullpen that we were all expecting. And we might as well get into this, that we're playing with a team that the Mariners are playing with also without a starter and Brian Wu, and now Emerson Hancock's going to take over. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. First, I kind of want to get some more positive things going before we get into the dark side of the show. Let's talk about what we're excited about. And before we talk about what we're excited about, I thought I say that Mariners opening day is tomorrow, and must I send you this reminder. SeatGeek is a mobile ticketing app for sporting events, concerts, and other events. They make the buying experience easier by the app ranking each ticket from 0 to 10 to see if you are getting a good deal, and you can see exactly where you are sitting. I regularly use that app, and I have had nothing but a fantastic experience with SeatGeek. Use my promo code RooftopSports to get $20 off of your first purchase. Link to the code, app, and website will be in the description, so take advantage, and thank you. Trident, you need your version of that too. So someday we'll arrange something like that, and use my promo code Rooftop Sports, get $20 off of that purchase, so you can go to that Mariners opening day. Because I ain't going. I'm gonna be right here doing the game because it's free for me to do it. I don't want to spend $100 and wait in line and eat expensive. No, I'm good. So we're gonna go to the
Say real quick, if somebody's already used that promo code, you can also use promo code JS Trident for $20 off if you've already used Rooftops promo.
I am going to put that in there in the comments. JS Trident, use that as well.
If you've used rooftops, it's his show. Use his first. But if you've used rooftops, go ahead and use JS Trident.
And vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. If you've used mine, use rooftop.
Now let's get into what we are excited about. Well, what am I excited about? Mitch Haniger is back. Julio seems to be fired up and ready to go. The starting rotation is possibly even better than last year, because last year our fifth starter was Marco Gonzalez. And now the fifth starter's, well, going to be Emerson Hancock, which we'll explain a little bit later. We got Polanco, the fact we got Luke Raley off of the Jose Gabiero trade. And most of all, I'm excited about this farm system because I'm going to be going to some games. Maybe I'll cover some live shows for minor league baseball games dependent on the prospects. Like, I'm not going to just cover a game if there's like no prospects that I care about. Like, if it's like Montez playing or like Johnny Farmello, absolutely going to go over it. So those are things I'm excited about. And if everything is right, if everyone was healthy, this is easily a top 5 offense, or even possibly the best team in baseball. And now, Trident, anything that you're excited that I did not even express, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the rotation, even without Brian Wu, with Gilbert, Castillo, Kirby, I think you've got, 1, 2, 3, one of the best 1, 2, 3 punches in all of baseball. Hopefully Bryce Miller, that splitter works and he takes kind of that step forward. My only concerns with Miller, really, I've talked about, is just him kind of being a one-pitch pitcher last year. And even listen, Emerson Hancock is a legitimate prospect. It's not like he's out and the corpse of Chris Flex, or Wu is out, excuse me, the corpse of Chris Flexen is coming in here to pitch. Emerson Hancock was drafted higher than Gilbert and Kirby. That doesn't mean anything necessarily, but it's not like this is a nobody that's stepping in the rotation here. So we could see the maturation of Emerson Hancock. And I'm with you on the offense. I am really excited. I think this is a good group. We can talk about some of the negatives later on, and there's certainly some downside, but if you can get these guys healthy, 1 through 9, I really like this lineup a lot. Top to bottom, the bullpen, first month, probably going to be relying on guys like Trent Thornton, Ryan Stanek, a little bit more. But once you can, hopefully, Brash looks like he's getting closer. Santos, not sure on. Once you can get hopefully those guys in there, you're locked and loaded. Then all those other guys kind of take a step back. And, if Stanek is solid, you've got a guy that can pitch in the 5th, 6th inning along with Thornton. You know what I mean? So you've got some good depth there. And I even think offensively the depth is better than people think. I think a guy we haven't talked about, not to, go off here, like Dylan Moore. Last year missed a lot of time with that core injury. I don't think he really got his feet settled for the first month he was back. I think a full healthy season of him is huge and what he can bring to the table. So I think there's just a lot to be excited about, like you said, especially offensively. I think this can be a really, really good offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that we're relieved about is Mariners possibly won't have 400 strikeouts in just 2 hitters. Now, I did love one of them. I really do miss him. It's Eugenio Suarez. I mean, he was the one guy I was like, okay, fine. I can take on 200 strikeouts as long as he's keeping Julio in check. Great defense. And even though his home runs weren't there compared to 22, his RBIs did go up by another 10. So he still made up for something. But despite the fact people say he was out of shape, or he may not, that may have been his last run, you don't know. But either way, we're still going to miss that leadership that he did absolutely provide.
Yep.
So, but aside from that, it is a very exciting young team. Like, look at the designated hitter. We got Mitch Garver. We got Mitch Haniger can play there once in a while. I mean, last year, our designated hitters were Tommy La Stella and Cooper Hummel to start the season. And even with Mike Ford, as much as he was exciting to watch with those big tanking home runs, you still couldn't depend on him on a daily basis. But with Mitch Garver and Haniger, if they're healthy, that's a lethal duo of the Mitches. Mm-hmm. So that's something to be excited about. And I think we've talked about as much as excitedness. I mean, the other thing we're excited about is it's going to be our second full year of doing YouTube, doing live shows. Like, for me personally, my personal goal of doing live shows is last year I did about 38 to 39 shows. my goal is to double that. And with a more open work schedule I got, no, I'm not. I didn't lose anything, if you know what I mean, but things just got moved around. But with that, I will have more opportunities to cover Mariners games. So that will be very exciting. I know Trident's going to do that as well. We're both very excited. And hopefully, we can put ourselves on the map where we could be known as the alternative voices of the Seattle Mariners, because as of now, it's really the three of us that are doing it. As of now, we've got yourself, myself, and you love to see it by Jake. He's doing his own thing as well tomorrow. So go ahead and check him out while checking me out as well. And the other thing we forgot to even mention, credit to this guy, Ty France. He's supposed to be doing good for a good season because he went to the same workout location that JP Crawford went to. And I'm starting to think I should have went myself because I got a softball game next week. So maybe I'll drive down there and see if they'll give me like a 1-day crash course. Who knows? But
if Driveline turns you where you can become like a Mariners player, then every single person in Driveline just needs to fire everybody in the Mariners staff and just make Driveline the number one like coaching staff.
hey, and maybe we'll do a deal together. I'll give that promo code
There you
of
go.
like 20% to work on your game, and I'll up their business as well. Plus, they have the name. Now, excited as we are about the Mariners, there's going to be the concerns that I have. And Trident, I'll have you go first because I might have some different thoughts than what you may have and everyone else.
Yeah, listen, as excited as I am, and I've said I think the Mariners are going to win the division this year. There are certainly a few things and places where the team there's injury risk. I think health is a big thing for this team. And that's big for every team, but the Mariners have some injury prone guys. Mitch Haniger, Mitch Garver, Jorge Polanco. We're seeing it already in the bullpen. Brash, isn't back yet. Santos, we don't know. Brian Wu has an injury history. So the team's going to have to, hopefully, Julio's missed some time both seasons. I think freak injuries, but it's happened. So I think that's the number one. They've got to stay healthy. I don't think the depth is terrible, but like there are certain injuries you're just not going to be able to survive if they start piling up. So that really is for me the number one. Number two, and this may be one you have. I'm a little nervous about the bullpen in the beginning without Brash and Santos. I say Santos. I want to say Brosh because it's like
Brosh,
Brosh and Santos. But I'm a little bit worried. Ryan Stanek's okay. He's been around a while though. Like it wouldn't be the craziest thing ever if he came in and stunk, right? You know what I mean? Like we've seen this team sign some veteran relievers and sometimes they just don't turn out very good. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Not trying to be negative, but it's definitely possible. And if a couple other guys take a little bit of a step back, maybe Saucedo, I think Spire will be fine. I don't see him taking a big step back. And then, Munoz was, 2022 was maybe best reliever in baseball. He was fine last season. He was certainly not a bad reliever by any means, but didn't quite have the same lights out 2022 Andres Munoz. Now, hopefully he's healthy and we can get that, but I am a little bit nervous about the bullpen in April. And then, I talked about the health. Other than that, I back up catcher a little bit, but I just don't think that's going to play enough to be a huge distraction, or not distraction, but huge negative. But those would be my two, and I'll let you take the floor.
Well, mine's going to be the health of the offense. I mean, I'm be the first one to tell you that I'm concerned about the bullpen, but it's about the health of the team. Mitch Haniger, we've seen he's been injured, including breaking his balls in 2019. That was an actual injury. I remember one time when I was making that timeline video and I blindly typed that he basically broke his balls on a professionally built timeline video. One of my friends pointed out, like, he ruptured his testicles and you actually put that out. I actually did do that.
Like it happened.
I know. Hey, Mitch, I'm sorry, man. Don't mean to make a joke. I know it's too soon, but yeah, the injuries concerns is a thing. Polanco has injury problems. Urias showed up to camp arguably out of shape. Now, he did pick it up at the end, but I'm still going to, even with that last couple weeks of him playing well, I just don't see if I can see that translating right into baseball, like him batting like 300 something in spring training and then putting that into Major League Baseball. it's just really tough to see that happening. So the health is going to be heavily dependent. But for Mitch Haniger, if it makes you feel better, since 2018, he's healthy every 3 years. 2021, and now it's 2024. Hopefully his health can hold up. So the health is going to be the problem there. And I really do think if Sebi Savala doesn't like at least bat in like the 250s and not just screw it up too much, I am going to miss Tom Murphy for that. Like, and yes, his defense was a bit questionable, but he more than made up for it with his bat. And we all agree that if Tom Murphy was healthy in September, there could have been a legitimate playoff run for the Seattle Mariners. And imagine all they had to do is play Texas. But granted, that is 2023. So it is what it is. And looks like Yuki Matsui of the Padres is saying that Cal Raleigh has a bruised heel. I wonder if that, I got to check that on Twitter and see if that's
I
a
didn't
thing.
See that. I'll check that out.
Unless that's like been like a recurring possible thing, which
I
mean, and we have seen Cal Raleigh. He's a fighter where he has been known. Like remember in the 2022 playoffs, he did have those. Hurt. He was hurt. I haven't really seen it, but I would still believe it because the guy is a fighter and he does have a lot of wear and tear in him. And when you're a catcher and you're squatting your knees, it really does burn down on your knees. And then another problem that I'm concerned about, and I said it last year, no one really believed me, but it's Scott Service. And I talked to some friends about a couple days where this one of my friends, he said that he's been a manager for almost 10 years, one playoff appearance. Now, granted that a few of those seasons were like rebuilds, so you can give that pass, but even with Cano, Cruz, and Seager, and even a maybe decent Felix Hernandez, I still think he could have led them to the playoffs. But besides the point, I'm still concerned about how he sets his lineups and how he manages his pitchers, because we've seen it where he pulls the starters too early, then the bullpen comes in and just messes it up. Or sometimes you've seen it where, let's say, Gabe Spire pitches an easy 1-2-3, and next thing you know, he yanks that guy. He yanks Gabe Spire, and then the next guy, he lays an egg. So that's the concern that I have. I know it's a very under the radar concern every single year, but it's just something I observe. And it's not just because I'm like, oh, Fire's got Service, I don't like him. It's just only because of what I've seen. And we have seen those decisions where even in analytical sense, it made no sense. Like putting in Robbie Ray against Yordan Alvarez. If you put it in the analytics, Yordan Alvarez destroys lefties. So in an analytical sense, Paul Sewald made more sense. So for someone that believes in the analytics, that one did not work for him. So those are the few. The health of the team, and can Scott Service learn from his mistakes from basically ever and manage this team much better? Now, granted, I will acknowledge him that he was very well connected with the team. He really did his best to keep the team together throughout the offseason, because the offseason was filled with distractions. It was mostly Cal Raleigh was calling out the ownership. Fans were upset with ownership. Even like JP Crawford and I think George Kirby even expressed their frustrations just by Twitter by liking some random Mariners fan post. So there were concerns, but Scott Service somehow kept it together, and this team looks like they are more excited than ever. And 23 hours cannot just come fast enough. Like,
I know.
It really has to happen fast. But those are the excited abouts and the concerns. And now, with 15 minutes left in the show, we'll go over the final prediction. And I will go first. The prediction I would like to go, I will say at least 85 to around 88. And it's because that I just cannot depend on the fact that the team is going to be fully healthy. The team's already starting unhealthy. And we didn't even talk about the fact that Brian Wu is injured. And I may have to backtrack that. Brian Wu injuries makes me a little bit nervous. Now, luckily, like I think you said in your show, he doesn't have a Tommy John concern. It looks like he's going to be okay, but it's going to be up to Emerson Hancock to step up and fill that fifth role. But luckily, we don't have Chris Flexen or Marco Gonzalez to be like, oh crap. But it's something to pay attention to. Now, going back to final prediction, the health of the team is going to be the reason why maybe they'll break 90, but I think 85 to about 88 is going to be my realistic prediction just because of all those factors. And then we'll see games where George Kirby's pitching 8 amazing innings, and then Service like, how many pitches do you have? I have 85. Nope, you're gone. Let's get this guy in. And then they give up all the runs, which could happen. It may not. Hopefully it doesn't. But that's my final prediction between the feeling of 85 to 88.
My final prediction is hopefully I'll kill this fly that's flying around and driving me nuts right now. So I apologize for everybody seeing that. I've got him at 92, and I'm with you on everything you said. Like, I don't think anything you said was necessarily wrong. I do think they're going to stay healthy. I think there'll be, your injuries here and there, but I do think for the most part, they'll stay healthy. I mean, dude, I don't really have any basis for saying that. It's just, I'm going to say they do. I think I have Julio winning the American League MVP. And I think you've got 3 pitchers that could legitimately be in the Cy Young conversation. I think you brought up some good points with Scott. I've defended Scott, been a fan. Kind of what you talked about the offseason. I think he did a good job there, kind of bringing the team together. I think that's Scott's main selling point, is that he is, represents the players well. They want to play hard for him. I do think that in the end of the day, that is more important for me than in-game decisions. But to your point there, like, it's going to be a battle, right? Like, if it's the AL Central, I think I'd take the Mariners pretty easily. But the AL West is a dogfight. Like, Texas is good. Houston is good. The Angels aren't. You still got Mike Trout. Like, if he's healthy, he could beat you a few times. And they'll probably lose to the A's more than once. I think the A's only beat them one time last year. Like,
once in Seattle, and it was a very close game too.
That was the one where Julio was hurt and Kirby got scratched too or something, and Luke Weaver started. So, I mean, you're probably going to drop a couple more games. The A's, now you can make that up. They might beat Texas a couple more times, so whatever. But it's going to be a dogfight. And to your point with Scott, like, when it's that close, every decision can be the one that wins the division or not. You know what I mean? Like, it's a fair point you made. Like, I don't put a ton of stock into some of the in-game stuff. Like, sometimes you just got to, go with it and realize that sometimes every manager is just dumb sometimes in baseball. But to your point, like, it can, this one game was probably the difference last year, right? Like, what they missed the playoffs by 1 or 2, you know what I mean? Like, you could point, there's a couple decisions you could point to. Now, I tend to also say, hey, the players could have played better in certain spots as well. So that happens too. But no, I've got 92. I think Julio's your AL MVP. I think they win the division. And I absolutely do think this team can compete for a World Series. I guess my thought on that is, like, if you think they're going to win the division and they can, then you kind of automatically think they can win a World Series. I think every division winner, outside of maybe sometimes like the Central Division when it's like 84 wins. But if you can come out of the AL West with Houston and Texas, I don't see any reason you don't think, not you personally, but anybody. Like, if you're thinking, oh, I think they can win the division, but not the World Series. If you got them winning the AL West, they can absolutely win the World Series.
Oh, you were glitching for a moment, but
oh, my bad.
It's okay. I mean, hey, guess you got to upgrade that internet, like I'm telling you.
I know.
But,
well, luckily, I'll be out of this house, and the internet is upgraded at the new house, so it is there.
Are you with Xfinity, or is it going to be like some fiber network thing?
I don't know who we have down there, actually, to be honest.
The one thing I will say, if it's Xfinity, do not call them when setting up their modem. And also buy your own modem, too. And, of course, I'll send you the link because I'm the Best Buy nerd, so I would know everything in some ways. But I didn't even talk about if the Mariners would make the playoffs. I would say one of those wild card spots, probably at the skin of their teeth. Still hard to see a division just because. Now, the reason why the Mariners have a chance on division is because Texas didn't really do anything to improve their team unless their farm system is growing on, unless their prospects from the farm systems are just growing on trees, which Texas seems to do. They do a good job with that farm system. And Houston, they have a pretty depleted starting rotation from what we've seen, unless someone pops out of nowhere, because Houston does do that, where they can just flick the switch and say next man up. So if they have that depth, it'll be a difficult one. But if it's exactly what we're thinking of, the Mariners do have a more open shot than I think they did last season. And last season, I thought they had a really good shot because we didn't know that Bruce Bochy was going to transform that Texas culture. We didn't know that. We thought Houston being injured half the season was going to be enough. But it didn't really happen because internally Mariners had issues, because when you start the season with Cooper Hummel and Tommy Listell as your designated hitter, you're going to have problems. And you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, just to kind of add on to that, like, listen, they were leading this division, in September. Now, if ifs and buts were candies, whatever that saying is, like, they didn't win the division. So, but they were there. It's not like last year's, even the year before when they made the playoffs, they were like 13, 14 games back of Houston or something like that. They really weren't that close. They played them tough in the wild card series. They were swept, but they played them tough.
Division series.
Last year they were. Sorry, you're right. You're right. Thank you. But they were leading this division last year. I'm not saying, like, again, they didn't win it. So I get it to anybody that's sitting there going, well, Jay, they didn't win it. But they were there, like a little bit, like just 500 ball in September, and they win this division despite the slow start, which that's another thing I'll say. They need to get off to a better start this year. I'm not saying you got to come out and be 17-2, but you cannot be 13-18, 22-26. Like, I need them at least, a handful of games over 500. I think we both agree on that one. They've got to get off to a better start. But they did. They were so close last year. And to your point, I think, and I'm hoping to a little bit, Texas wins the World Series, maybe a little bit of a hangover from that. And I think Houston's, beatable. It's going to be tough. And both teams are great. They're great baseball teams. It's not going to be easy, but I do think the Mariners can do it.
I hope so too, for the sake of making the playoffs. And there was something I was going to mention, but I just completely forgot, which is why you write it down. Yeah, I know, right? But I'll just go to the last part of the show, which we have about 7 minutes left in this show, because I know we got to keep it to 45 minutes. But for anyone that may have seen it, I just watched John Stanton's interview on King 5. Paul Sylvie, he was the one that stepped up and did that interview. Now, I wonder if Paul Sylvie was being a little bit scripted about, oh yeah, I left this interview with a little bit more optimism. I didn't buy it, because few things that John Stanton said, Mariners owner, that it really stuck out like a sore thumb. And our friends Marine Layer podcast really pointed out. They pointed out so much that they kind of went semi-viral. So I'll give them props to that. But the first thing that really stuck out was when he was asked about, hey, John Stanton, how'd you feel about that whole Cal Raleigh comment? I really felt his pain. I'm quoting him. I talked to him and I understand where he's coming from. Few problems. One, I know he didn't say that. I think he really said, hey, Cal, you better apologize or else you're traded and I will destroy your career and paint you as the diva. So that's what I believe that happened, because it doesn't really line up when he says, oh, I understand where he's coming from. But the next day, Cal Raleigh apologized, because he wouldn't have apologized if John Stanton actually did side with him. And the other whole thing is, actions speak louder than words. If you really felt his pain, then you would have went out of your way to get the best possible baseball players. Now, in retrospect, it's great that Mariners didn't bite the bullet on Shohei Ohtani, because with a hindsight, if we knew about this whole gambling problem that he's having, it seems that he may just get away with it. Who knows? Because Pete Rose, unfortunately, didn't get away with it, because Pete Rose made a joke going, I wish I had a translator in the 70s and the 80s. But besides the point, the second thing he kind of said, that I think it was like he was talking smack about Kansas City, like, hey, they won a World Series, but they've been doing nothing since. And I want to build a more consistent 90-win baseball team. Well, here's the thing. I mean, first, Kansas City at least won a World Series, and they've won multiple times before the Mariners even existed. and I believe. No, I think it was like 85 they won, and also 2015. So they bought two. They got two of them when the Mariners were around. But the thing is, I didn't like that kind of talking, and more of the stuff he's saying was kind of it's kind of starting to get forgettable. And I mean, I'm trying to come up with that third point of what it was, but he was basically saying like,
well, oh, go ahead.
oh, also I remembered. He also said, "Oh yeah, that was Justin and Jerry's idea. They're the one. They're the baseball guys, and I signed off on it." I'm like, "But you're the one that's supposed to be providing the resources for the team. And look what Jerry and Justin did. They went around making these insane trades, but despite the budget payroll constraints that you gave them, and they were basically covering you up, and they made me almost forget how bad this ownership is just because of the Luke Raley, especially if he works out, and the Mitch Haniger trade, and the Jorge Polanco and that Gregory Santos. But then when you had this interview, you made me remember you again." But I know I don't want to sound too negative because we're just less than 24 hours away from Major League Baseball season. But I thought I just had to address it just be aware of when trade deadline happens and the Mariners are on that cusp of contending. If you don't see a really good trade, that interview is all you need to know. And I did cut you off. So what you got?
Oh, no, I was just going to say the other thing he did, and that was a great point. He kind of threw Jerry and Justin under the bus a little bit. And then he was talking about the trades, they brought up, and he focused on the Robbie Ray trade for the the Robbie Ray, Mitch Haniger, DeScalfini, whatever you want to say, trade. And it's like, John, that, I was talking about with Jake yesterday. It's like that's not the trade that people were mad about. I think most people were okay with that trade. Maybe some indifference, from people, but for the most part, I don't think anybody had an issue with that. They understood Robbie wouldn't be paid. And, then Stan goes this whole rant about, well, Robbie won't be ready till August, maybe. So we made John, nobody's mad at that trade. At least I'm sure there are people. There's always someone that doesn't like a trade. But I think almost all of us are fine with that trade. That one, we understood why they did it. It was the Kelenic trade. And I'm not even a big Jared Kelenic fan, but it was the Kelenic trade and the Geno trade that people were mad about. I think people understood the Robbie Ray deal. And I think people even understood, because he mentioned Evan White too. It's like, we get why Evan White and Marco were traded. I understand salary dumping those guys. I don't think, again, anybody has too much of an issue with getting those salaries off the books. That makes sense. The people's beef was that you did a salary dump trade and kind of threw Jared Kelenic in there and try to get more for Jared Kelenic. He was just the only way the Braves would take on those contracts. Geno, again, I get there might be some decline there. I'm not saying there's not a valid reason to trade Geno necessarily, but it was clearly a salary dump move where you get back a reliever with some upside. I like Vargas, and I think Zavala is a decent defensive catcher, but it's nothing that you're going to write home about. In the Kelenic trade, you get two guys that, not trying to be doom and gloom, but Koar is going to miss this whole season and hasn't shown much at the big league level yet. And Phillips is already on his second Tommy John at age 20. I mean, I hate to, my prayers for him. I hope he comes back, but that's a tough thing to come back from at that age and then to get back going with it. So those were the trades that people were upset about, John, not the Robbie Ray for Mitch Haniger.
Man,
that's what he focused on.
He kind of just got some vibes that it just felt so fake when the way he was talking.
Yeah.
And at least Howard Lincoln back then, at least he was honest about, at least he was doubling down about himself. Remember he said we're not here to win a World Series. We're just here to compete every year to maybe win a World Series. At least he was honest and he knew what he wanted. But Stanton's all over the place and trying to sound like he cares. But Howard Lincoln openly admitted that he didn't care. So
right.
I have to give props to Howard Lincoln. And I don't even like him either. But Stanton was just lying basically and shifting blames.
And here's the thing, do I think, people, John Stanton doesn't want to win? I'm sure he does. Winning is better than losing. Obviously, any owner would rather have their team win. So do I think John Stanton wants to win? Yes, I actually do think John Stanton wants to win. But I think he wants to win more from the business aspect of it than he does the baseball aspect. He wants to make the money, and then if they win, great. I'm sure John Stanton would be more than happy if the Mariners winning a World Series.
Oh, he'll take all the credit.
But I don't think yeah, but it's not win the World Series. And listen, I have no problem with owners making money. I don't. Like, you buy a team and you should try and make money. That's why you buy any business, is to make money. I don't have any problem with John Stanton making a profit off the Seattle Mariners, but it's very clear that it's profit winning. And like, maybe behind closed doors, that's fine. I get it. I've ran a business before. You got to make money. But when you're dealing with stuff like this, with a sports team, with stuff like that, I think you even made the point once. Usually you buy a sports team because it's something that, it's not like, ooh, this is going to make me a ton of money. It's, you've made a ton of money and you want to own this thing to be a part of it. Like, we can hate Jerry Jones all we want, but it's pretty darn evident Jerry Jones wants the Dallas Cowboys to win. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Yeah, Paul Allen. We know Paul Allen wanted the Seattle Seahawks to win, and he would put that above all. Now, Paul Allen tried to make money with the Seahawks. Of course he did. That's the goal. But with Stanton, I just get the sense of, like, winning would be great because it would help the profit, but the main goal is just the bottom line, which, like I said, you're running a business. I get it, but it's a little bit more than that, I think, when you're owning a sports team.
I think before we take off, my last thing I want to say is, which I did on my last video, was when it comes to like a sports business and content creating business, it's one of those things where you don't really expect to make money, because a lot of those things are money losing things. Like, sports franchise is actually a money losing business for the most part. It's difficult to make money on it, especially for YouTube. It's also very difficult to make money. And me personally, I have put in the money so far, and I can guarantee you I'm in an absolute net negative on my channel. But do I care about that? Not really, because it's about building for the long-term future. Like, I spent money on a friend of mine to fix my thumbnails because I wanted the more quality. That's where it was about the passion more than the making money part. And plus, if I have a crappy thumbnail, no one's going to watch my stuff and I'm going to make nothing anyway. So that's where you got to know, if you're an owner or a business owner or whatever, you got to put somewhere with passion, with the line of winning and making money. Because if you're all in it to just make money in a business, you're going to be absolutely miserable if all you care about, if your mindset's just making money. But that was my final thoughts. And I know we went 3 minutes over, but we're going to end this because Trident's got to do his thing. I got to get ready for tomorrow. But thank you very much. And sorry I couldn't get to all of your questions, but tomorrow you'll have a much bigger opportunity for me to address those questions that you have for tomorrow. So make it to my show, and nothing hard on Trident, but due to the fact that it looks like, since you're not going to be here, maybe my show might get pushed to 6:30 rather than 6, unless I can come up with a lot of things. I'll make a judgment call by tomorrow. And Trident, whatever you're going through, hope it goes smooth, and be looking forward to you next week. And everyone else, thank you very much for watching. And always, go Mariners, and let's hope for a great 2024 season.